Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. Today, I'm chatting with Allison Rodman, founder of The Learning Loop and author of Personalized Professional Learning, a job-embedded pathway for elevating teacher voice. Allison has extensive experience in personalizing professional learning, and since that is a key role for all coaches, this conversation is a goldmine of ideas. This Spotlight episode focuses on the value of having a mentor as a learning leader. It's often perceived that coaches and leaders don't have or don't need mentors. But just like for our teachers, having a coach is invaluable. Allison shares her experience with mentorship and why all coaches and leaders should seek mentorship as well. In the full-length audio podcast, we discuss in depth Allison's key recommendations for personalizing professional learning in both individual and group PD settings. To hear the full episode, subscribe to Coach Better wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy today's episode, you will love all of the resources and professional learning experiences we're curating for you here at Eduro Learning. Check out our website to see all of our latest offerings at edurolearning.com. All right, welcome back to another episode of Coach Better. Today, I'm really excited to be here with Allison Rodman, who's the founder of The Learning Loop. Allison, welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Yes, thanks so much for having me on, Kim. It's a pleasure to join you.
I am super excited to have found you because I feel like we have so many overlaps in the work that you're doing and the work that we're doing. But before we get into that, can you give us a little bit of a background about your education experience so everyone has the benefit of knowing all about you?
Certainly. So I was a high school teacher in Richmond and in Philadelphia and have worked in a variety of different roles in education, including being an instructional coach, working as the school administrator, and now I have the opportunity to be a partner with schools as a professional learning designer and facilitator, and I'm also a school board member. So I've had an opportunity to see education from a variety of different perspectives, but my real commitment is how do we personalize professional learning so that the adults in our building are getting the same individualized experiences that we're expecting them to design for kids.
You are so successful and you are willing to learn from others, to be a learner, to be vulnerable in your learning. And I think there's a challenge we have in education that as educators, very often we are the voice of authority in the room, whether or not that's our perspective on what learning is. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, if you're the oldest person in the room, often you are the voice of authority in the room. And therefore, coaching and mentoring is not always well respected in the field of education. It's clear that you think it's valuable. Why should other educators consider having a mentor, having a coach? How can coaches sell the idea of coaching being valuable to their colleagues if that's something they struggle with?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've come to realize is that whether you're in the classroom or you're in, more of an administrative position, is that education as a whole is incredibly isolating, particularly when compared to other professions. So you go into your classroom, you close the door, it's 1 on 30. You go into your office, you close the door, and you have a list of who knows how many demands and pressing priorities that you need to address. And in some cases, it is you, and you do have to be the one making those decisions. So in that reality, I think one of the mistakes that we make is feeling as though we have to always bear that burden ourselves and that we can't reach out to others for help. One of the things that I find incredibly ironic is that for many of us as teachers, we had sort of that mantra in our classroom with students of C3 before me, where we were trying to build this idea of self-sustainability and accountability with our students. And then there's this shift that happens when we become adult learners where it's no, I can't ask anybody. I've got to figure it out on my own. The coaching aspect of that becomes so incredibly important because we're never going to grow and reach our potential and ultimately be the model learners that our students need unless we're willing to reach out for that type of support ourselves.
I feel like I just want to stop there because yes, I totally agree. And I was having a great conversation with another coach that I mentored this week and talking to her about how I have coaches. And she was like, "You have a coach?" And I was like, "Yeah. Like if I'm coaching you, don't you think that I think it's valuable enough for me to have a coach?" But it was just, I think the expression on her face was just so surprised. And I guess I struggle to help other educators or coaches understand. I don't struggle. I can explain it very clearly. I struggle to see why some are still so resistant. And I think it is that switch of like, suddenly as an adult, we feel like we have to do everything on our own. And I really don't understand where that message came from and why it's so pervasive, especially in education, because I don't think it's pervasive in other fields. I think in other fields, it's so common to have a mentor or a coach or someone supporting you. It's something specifically about education, and I can't quite figure it out.
I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because you kind of like put on the teaching hat and it's like, okay, I'm this expert, whether it's in my content area or grade level, and I've got to kind of have it all together. But then, the more work that I do sort of with businesses and start to think about, what professional learning looks like in those spaces, like they have speech coaches and they, they have social media coaches and they have marketing coaches. And, we're like so hesitant even to reach out to someone to say, hey, can you work on this lesson plan with me? Whereas, in the business world, we've got people to help us with presentations and all these different aspects that we just need to kind of let that guard down and get back to that idea of vulnerability again. Yes. To say it's okay to not know something.
I think that's it. I think it's about that piece of vulnerability and being okay with not knowing something. And we have this pressure as educators, having gone up through being educated in perhaps a very similar system, and then becoming an educator or becoming a school leader and recognizing that the whole culture of the community is like looking up to the person before you, as opposed to finding it out together, seeking it out with support. And so I think that message that we're never going to grow and reach our potential and demonstrate that kind of growth mindset we want for our kids unless we're willing to be vulnerable ourselves, that is such a key takeaway. And I thank you so much for saying that so clearly, because I think that's the message I want to come across on this podcast all the time. And I'm really glad that I was able to chat with you and hear you say that in such a nice way. Thanks for watching today's episode. Don't forget to check out edurolearning.com for more great learning opportunities and connect with us on social media at Eduro Learning to stay up to date with everything we share.